Good evening, welcome. I'm John. I'm a bookseller at Literati bookstore in downtown Ann Arbor, Michigan. We're so pleased to welcome Chris Colin and Rinee Shah in conversation with Wendy McNaughton in celebration of Off, the Day the Internet Died. Just a quick webinar overview for attendees. The chat is closed, but you may want to keep the chat window open during the event as I will be sharing links to purchase Off the Day the Internet Died from Literati throughout the event. You can also use the Q&A feature on your toolbar. It's right below us to submit questions or comments at any time. And I will read a selection of those at the conclusion of the event and conversation tonight. And as a reminder, you can shop for more books at literatibookstore.com for curbside pickup if you live in Southeast Michigan or to have shipped to your home anywhere in the United States. In lieu of a book purchase, we'd also ask that you consider a $5 donation to sustain our virtual programming. So whether you'd like to think of that as this week's or this month's or this year's subscription to our programming, you can make donations at literatibookstore.com/donation. Otherwise, we simply thank you for your attendance this evening or this morning or this afternoon, depending on where and when in the world you may be joining us. Which leads me to add that if you'd like to, if you're not watching us live, you're watching us later on YouTube, there are always links to purchase books in the description right below me, and you can subscribe to catch up on past At Home with Literati events that you may have missed live. But now allow me to introduce tonight's authors, illustrator, and our moderator. Chris Collins' writing has appeared in the New York Times Magazine, Pop-Up Magazine, Savor, Outside Wired, Smithsonian, and Best American Science and Nature Writing. He's the author of What to Talk About, What Really Happened to the Class of '93, and Blindsight. He co-wrote This Is Camino, which was nominated for a James Beard Award. He also publishes 6 Feet of Separation, a pandemic newspaper by and for kids. He lives in San Francisco. Rinee Shah is an illustrator and advertising creative director. Her clients include Apple, the New York Times, Fendi, Inside Hook, and Simon & Schuster. She is the author and illustrator of the Made Up Words Project, a visual dictionary of made up words. She lives in Brooklyn. And Wendy McNaughton is a #1 New York Times bestselling illustrator and graphic journalist based in San Francisco. She has illustrated 12 books, including Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Samin Nosrat and The Gutsy Girl by Caroline Paul, whom Wendy also happens to be married to. She is a former visual columnist for the New York Times and California Sunday Magazine. She's the creator and host of Draw Together, the online interactive art show enjoyed by kids in over 40 countries. They can't hear you, but they can sense you through the powers of the internet. So please join me in welcoming Chris, Rinee, and Wendy into your living rooms.
Thank
Hello.
you. Hi.
Hi,
Nice to
guys.
see you all. Hey, quick shout out to any NPR bigwigs that are listening. You can find John's email address, I assume, by going through the Literati website. Please hire him to do any future talking about things. Doesn't he have a nice voice and a nice way
So
about it?
smooth. So smooth.
Now that he's just a typewriter, we can talk about him. Very smooth.
Oh, you guys, I'm so happy to be here to talk with you today.
Yeah.
This is so fun. I love this book so much.
Thanks.
Yay.
We made that book.
I know you guys made this book. I feel like it's just, and it's such a perfect marriage of the words and the pictures, and you guys come together. It's so beautiful. For those folks who are joining us who have not already purchased the books, but they should just stop, do right now, and then continue. Do you want to kick it off, Chris or Rinee, with like a little description of the book? Let people.
Sure. Yeah. Rinee, do you want to do it or you want me to do it?
I want you to do it.
All right. Off is a, what do we say? Off is a an illustrated picture book, funny picture book for grown-ups and grown-up like children. It's a picture book, but it's like you can read it if you're of age. But we also know lots of young people who are into it, right, Rinee?
Babies, yeah, a lot of babies are into it.
Yeah, a lot of babies are super into it. Anyways, the book is a fantasy in which the internet mysteriously disappears from the world. Humanity scrambles briefly, as we would, of course. And then the story sort of tracks people's sort of adjustment to what happens and where that goes over time. It is a very slim book. It's not a doorstop, and it couldn't even stop like a screen door. But yeah, you can read it very quickly. But our hope is that it's a Trojan horse of a book that leads to slightly more substantive conversations. We're not scolds or lecturers. Rinee and I are huge internet users, but we do think that there's got to be a new way of talking about this, the hold that the internet has on us and what it's doing to us individually and as a society and as a planet, without being like a fundamentalist about it. So we're hoping that this can sort of jumpstart some fun soul searching or something like that. Does that sound accurate, Rinee?
Yeah.
Book we wrote. And one more thing I'm going to read just a couple pages so you get the flavor. It's written in biblical style. So, you know.
I have so many questions, but you want to read first? Yeah, go read.
Running the show. Okay, I'll read real quick.
Yeah, read a little bit.
Okay.
Oh, I have questions. Oh yeah.
Okay. We made a book trailer and we hired a fake Morgan Freeman to voice it because we wanted someone who sounded like God because it's in this biblical style.
Wait, where do you go to hire a fake Morgan Freeman?
The internet.
Yeah.
Life is ironical, Wendy.
Shockingly cheap. I would say I've spent more on a sandwich than it cost to hire this impersonator. So
it's true. It's worrisomely cheap. Why was it so cheap? He sounds like Morgan Freeman. He could put Morgan Freeman out of business. Anyways, I'm not Morgan Freeman. I'm not God. I'm just me reading in my voice. But imagine a more commanding voice as you hear these words. And I'm going to skip around a little bit. You're smart. You'll follow. On the day the screens went dark, I stood in the yard, and the sun shone brightly. But I was brought low, for I knew not where the stars of Saved by the Bell were now, nor which remained hot, and the information could not be Googled thereof. On the day the screens went dark, I cried to our children, "Let us bake a pie, though we know not which recipe is rated highest." We toiled and toiled, then beheld what we'd wrought. It would receive neither fave nor heart, nor Aunt Kim's supplemental conspiracy links, but we ate of it with vigor. On the day the screens went dark, 70 inches of sewage streamed into the basement because, forsooth, turns out the internet controls the something wastewater treatment sensor something. Okay, so a mixed bag. On the day the screens went dark, I took mine old flute down from the closet and gazed upon a cloud that resembled a camel and played 14-fold rounds of Go Fish with the children, a plague upon them both. But still, there was time for reflection. I reflected on the ceiling and imagined walking up there, how clean and bare it was, a thought unvisited for years. We'll show you some art more better later, but you can get a little sense of what it looks like.
That's so funny. And it's so wonderful. I love it so much. I love the parts that you just chose, and you alluded to this when you were describing the book before, is the kind of journey that human species go on, right? Like when the internet goes dark, that it starts off with this kind of fear, and then I really loved the ending in a like imagination, like opening up the brain to a place where we can actually think again. Yeah, and I was wondering, like, do either of you ever take the time away from the phone and experience that? Is this like a process that you yourself have experienced ever in stepping away, or is this like an imagined possibility?
Rinee, I've been talking, you say some things about that.
I think for me, it's more imagined. I'm not good at self-regulating. I think the closest I've come is just deleting Instagram for a little while, but I'm never totally able to disconnect.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a fantasy for me.
Yeah.
Rinee, when was the last time you spent significant amounts of time away from the internet? Like what is a window for you in which you might be away from it?
I mean, the last time was like, what, when I was like before the internet, I think. Like I've been on the internet since it's been around. I don't know. I've never really taken a long break, but something to consider.
How about you, Chris?
So Rinee's super off message. We'll have to have a conversation later.
Yeah.
No, I too am not very good at it. Although I have been trying to take a little of our medicine. Over the last few months, I would do like an hour a night where I would try and do something that the internet was keeping me from doing. And in my case, it was playing music, like playing guitar music or other instruments, because I don't know why. I think fellow musicians will know this. For some reason, that's one of the first things that you abandon when you have an internet habit, is like playing instruments. Those get left in the dust. So I would pick instruments up for the first time. And then last weekend I swam in a river, and I did not have my phone with me in the river, because you can't do that. And that was lovely. It was not just lovely because of the river, but it was really nice just not having the stupid thing in my hand.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I found. I was wondering about this in writing and drawing this book, if it's like that doctor or therapist heal thyself kind of thing, if this was like an opportunity for you guys to imagine something that you wanted for yourself in some way. Like if that
oh yeah, no, it was not healing other people. It was I don't know anyone who has a bigger problem with the internet than I do. I mean, it's definitely preaching at myself. In my other life, I'm a slightly more serious journalist when I'm not doing picture books, and I use the internet all the time, and my kids use it, and I use it for to watch shows and listen to podcasts, all the normal stuff. I'm super embedded in the internet.
Yeah, and then how did that? So given that you both of you are so much in the internet, then like how did the idea for this book originate? Where did it come from? From a need for it, or something you had while scrolling the internet, or?
I Googled idea for book.
Yeah.
No, I will say that I'm sure that we all have had these feelings. In fact, before the pandemic, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I think a lot of us were starting to slowly make little resolutions about, trying to have a slightly healthier relationship with our screens. And I was doing that. There was this moment, I mean, I think we've all had a million moments, but I can think of one moment where I'd gone on a hike up in Northern California, and I was sitting above this gorgeous estuary in Point Reyes, and it was fall, so it was all like golden and brown, like a million shades of yellow and golden brown, and I was just sitting there taking it all in for about 2 minutes, and then I felt like my hand reached toward my right jeans pocket. I was like, I want a little something extra. I realized, God, we're so used to like the human experience being curated online, so it's never boring. It's really hard to sit with quiet internet-free reality. It's a little slow. It's you sort of, and if you those muscles atrophy, the ability to sit with that, it's a weird feeling. So that was one of the many moments I realized I needed to give this some thought. And then I reached out to Rinee, and then Rinee, you explain your side of it.
Chris reached out to me to see if I would be interested, and he sent over, I keep calling it the manuscript, but it was really just a PDF of
Say manuscript, it sounds better.
the manuscript. And yeah, the writing was just so funny and different, but it just hit so like close to home that it was just a project that I really wanted to be a part of. So that's how I got involved.
Did you have, Rinee, like when you received the manuscript, did you immediately have ideas for what it could look like, or was that something that evolved over time?
That definitely evolved because it's written in this biblical tone, and like I didn't have that much like frame of reference personally for that. Like I didn't grow up reading the Bible or looking at that kind of imagery. And so it definitely took a second to be like, okay, like, what does that mean if, the language looks like this? Like, what does that mean for the visual? So it took a little bit to think about it.
Rinee, I don't think I ever told you this, but I remember at that stage, I called Wendy, and I was like, "This is good, right? This lady out in Brooklyn, this is good." And she vetted you. Do you remember that? That was a long time ago.
Pretty darn good. I think I said, "Heck yeah, are you kidding me?"
That sounds right.
Amazing. Yeah, so good. But this was something that you guys did like before the pandemic, right? And
we finished right before the pandemic hit.
But we had a feeling the pandemic was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish we would have listened to you, Chris, when you were telling us all the pandemic.
I got so tired of walking around that sandwich board.
The biblical thing really like you took real deep inside. And yeah.
Wait, can we ask you questions for a second, Wendy?
No. So what if one, but only if I can turn it back onto you.
You can try. I don't know. I just wonder, like, what's your relationship with the internet? Because you are someone who is online. Obviously, your work requires you to be online a ton, and you're
Same
someone.
As
yeah. But you're someone who is deeply connected to the other dimension, the dimension that I miss, which is the dimension of I don't know what to call this dimension, but it's the deeper, stranger, more soulful dimension that we sometimes brush up against as people. And that
I was thinking about my Instagram account. Sorry, what? Sorry. No, I would push back hard on that, because I think just like your story about reaching for your phone, I think is super familiar to all of us. Mm-hmm. But for some of us, it's about like, I want to look up the name of that tree. Like my wife is always like, she can't have a conversation without being like, but wait, let's Google that person, like, mm-hmm. Or then there's some people are like, oh, let me tell my friend about this. Right. And then there's some people who are like, let me photograph it and then post it. Like we all have this thing where it has to, like you said, Chris, has to like have this added dimension to it. Like it's plus, it's like a bonus thing. I don't think that's our like human plus condition. I know,
but I just think you are able to, maybe you're just good at toggling, but you're able to, I think of the internet as a wonderful place. Obviously it's miraculous in a million ways, but I always think it's, it's sort of inch deep, mile wide in terms of the feelings it tends to give us, with some obvious exceptions. But whereas when you in those moments when you sort of connect with your deeper self, that happens to all of us, I think that's a more profound experience. And I find that I'm more often than not, I'm not having that on when I'm anywhere near a screen. I don't know why. Maybe it's generational, but I think of you as someone who's able to get in touch with her source, as we say in California.
Well, I don't know. One of the things I really, really love about your book, Off the Day the Internet Died, which everybody should buy, is like I said earlier, that there's this kind of, and you learned to like this kind of unfolding experience that happens, right? And there's like a deepening that occurs over time of experience that we have when we're disconnected. And that one that you mentioned, when they're like staring, I think that's to me, it was one of the most striking parts, both visually and the text, the idea of just like staring at the ceiling and thinking like, that'd be fun to walk on. That's a hard place to get to these days when we're constantly getting answers, where there's not as much wonder. And I think that I should probably save this to the end, but I'm just like, I think that the actual creation of this book like is wondrous in a way. Like I think it's a really good kind of antidote to the internet in its own bookishness. You know what I mean? Like in the way that you imagined it. So I love the experience of reading it and spending time with it, because it actually got me to imagine, you know what I mean? It like cracked my brain a little bit. And I wonder if the experience of making it in any way like changed you. Like, did it force you to imagine things in a way that you didn't before? Or Rinee, did like the way that when you were looking up, the irony is that you have to use the internet, right? To research all the iconography and everything. Plus you're working digitally, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you're so tied to it. But when you move, I mean, so like take the research aside, when you're actually in a creative act, like you're drawing, or Chris, when you're writing, do you find that that's a time when you're off? Do you find that that's a time when you're, you might come back to yourself?
I mean, I wish I was one of those artists that did a lot by hand, so I could kind of go away from the computer, make something and come back, but I'm definitely not. I do everything digitally, and so I am just always on my computer as I'm making something. So, and I'm not disciplined enough to turn off the internet while I'm making those things. So I'm sure that I was like, I think I actually had like BoJack Horseman playing as I was drawing. Like I was like very like multitasking as I was drawing. So I was not 100% in the zone, probably.
But hold on, Chris, I want to hear what you have to say this too. But Rinee, like, that's the thing that none of us ever talk about, right? Is that we're always watching Netflix while doing books. Like illustrators are always watching Netflix. It's true, isn't it true?
It's like hours of work, and once you get through all the true crime podcasts, you got to do something.
Wow.
It is true though that like I do know a lot of artists who you would think that it is taking you into that space, but actually we are multitasking with that. Yeah. Oh. Chris, when you were writing it, were you able to like go off a little bit
for the manuscript?
Yeah.
The manuscript. I mean, I will say it's, how many pages is it? Like 30 something. Took me 12 years to write this, and I lived in a cabin for most of that time. I wrote it like in the normal way that it was like little bits offline. I mean, I do write on paper oftentimes, so I get away a little bit, but no, it's more that it got me offline later because it forced me to it forced me to articulate this sort of burbling discomfort I felt and put it into words. And I felt like the internet was been around long enough that everyone was sort of tired of griping about it. Like, oh, social media is toxic. I spend too much time, going down weird Google rabbit holes, or I watch too much YouTube videos, or whatever the complaint, or Twitter is like giving me, heart palpitations. Everyone has like the same kind of gripes about the internet, but no one's like, or maybe we've been griping so long that it sort of got tedious to complain about it. For some reason, I felt like no one was really saying this stuff that much, unless you were like in the camp of like hardcore digital detox people who are very serious about it and very impressive. But that's not me, and that's not Rinee, and that's not you, I don't think, Wendy. So I felt like it forced me to articulate this other realm where you're like, I'm a reasonable person with an addiction that I'm not really planning to change, but I want to be more thoughtful about the internet and myself.
Yeah. And also you guys both come at like with a lot of humor, and I feel like those digital detox guys, like, whoo, you know what I mean? Like maybe not the funny, maybe they are, I don't know. I haven't been to the camp, but like, I think you have, Chris, right?
Yeah. I recorded on one of those camps. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's maybe not always with the most humor, but I feel like you kind of have this silver bullet here where you can introduce a conversation where people might either be griping or they might just kind of roll their eyes and go back to their phones. But a lot of times, like humor, I mean, Chris, I think you're one of the funniest writer I know, I would say. But
thank you for that correction.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a super strong weapon for something that can be like, a weighty conversation or an earnest conversation. A lot of times that can turn people off in a different way.
I think that's right.
So, yeah.
I would not want to hear an earnest person talking to me about my internet habits, even if they're right.
No. Have you, I know that you've talked to people like through these kinds of forums, but also I'm sure that this like has started conversations with people. Has anybody shared stuff with you that maybe was unexpected about their relationship to the internet since this book has come out?
Yeah. Rinee, what do you think? Have you gotten good feedback on that?
Just that it's a really relatable topic. And I think the humor is just, like you were saying, an easy way into it without it feeling too preachy. But I think, Chris, all those offline fantasies that you were working on, it was really interesting to hear all those responses too.
I did this little project where I sort of went into journalist mode. I don't have many other modes in my life. And I just started calling people or emailing people and asking them to share one way their life would improve if the internet died. And it turned out everyone had something. I mean, at first it was like, wait,
Really?
what? I don't understand the question. But then once they got going, everyone was like, oh God, yeah. I don't know, this woman, Zara, I think of her a lot. She said something that was really poignant to me. She's a comedian, but she said, you know, I used to make these funny little videos with my nieces, and they were just sort of quirky and funny. And then the internet came along, and I realized how much wonderful content is on the internet. And I realized like our videos are not that good. So I just sort of stopped doing it. And I think she really put her finger on one one sort of upsetting aspect of the internet, which is it makes it really easy to compare yourself to someone else. There's so much good stuff that people are doing, and you can see it so easily that it has a sort of I don't know, a shutting down effect on people. I don't know. I heard a lot of stories like that, just little ways that the internet was quietly warping people, and then wonderful things that people would like to do if the internet stopped warping them. Go into a restaurant without knowing in advance whether it's going to be good or bad, because you don't have Yelp there. Get lost in a city. You know, all these little things that we used to do, and sometimes they suck. You know, it sucks having bad food, sucks getting lost sometimes, but I still think it's a neat human experience, and the human experience contracts when you have all these rails that the internet supplies.
100%. And also, like, the bad food is a great story, and the getting lost is an unexpected experience, right? Like, if we know that the food's going to turn out well, and we know we're going to get where and go, like, what's that? You know? Maybe not as interesting. I think the big irony of this is that it came out at a time when, you know, the internet became everybody's main form of connection. And so the best of it was also the best of the connectivity of the internet came to the surface, and we all relied on it so much. And at the same time, the flip side, the worst of it, because it's so much. So I don't know. I mean, did you have any thoughts, like, given that your book came out like during this time of like peak internet?
Yeah. You know? Well, we kind of, yes. I mean, I don't say enough nice things about the internet, because the internet is the status quo, and I don't feel like the status quo needs to be supported by little old me. But yeah, the internet, of course, like, saved us all, saved so much of us. It allowed us to keep earning a little bit of money. It helped us, those of us who have kids. It was so much better than having my children watch the toaster all day. And, you know, Wendy, you and I both know like how much kids were absolutely relying on the internet in a deep and real way. It wasn't just for entertainment. It was like for connection for some really isolated people. And I feel like a forever gratitude for Sir Phineas Internet for inventing it, just for that. But yeah, it was also, I don't know, Rinee, you know, that review that, what was it, Publishers Weekly, it was otherwise a very nice review that we got, especially about Rinee's half of the book. But they said they sort of dinged us a little bit for daring to sort of speak ill of the internet after the pandemic, or in the midst of the pandemic, because it was sort of like, how dare you diss the internet when so many people need it? And I thought a lot about that. I was like, I don't know. I think that's when you should. I mean, it's not that I wanted the internet not to exist, but I feel like humanity was sort of hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good time to critique our reliance on a thread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to just like keep that in mind. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Did you find, like, Rinee, you work almost like exclusively digitally, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of going back to how the book got made. Is that okay if we do some like sausage That's,
Yeah.
whatever
Sure,
that,
yeah.
Sausage.
yeah.
Let's do some sausage.
Did you, so you said that you did a bunch of research and stuff like that on iconography and all of that, like, did you?
Yeah, I did a little bit. I remember just going on Pinterest and looking up biblical imagery and just trying to find like the common themes and trying to figure out like what can I pull from it that would feel right for this, because it's gotta feel biblical, but also like whimsical and silly as well.
Yeah. And it's also like, I love the kind of like flat and layered aesthetic that goes through. It's super beautiful. Did you go through, like, did you just do sketches and you like nailed it on the first one, or were there iterations, or how did it evolve?
Yeah, I did like a rough sketch for each spread, and then I would start the full spread, and it would take like 3 days just to finish one. But yeah, it was just kind of like, starting with like the main piece and just adding, like, there's a lot of like greenery in the book, a lot of like plants and stuff. So it'd be a lot of like adding that in and seeing like, oh, well, I used a flamingo in one spread. Can I bring it back like in another spread? Like trying to find those like common places to make it really feel like it was part of this little universe.
It's a wonderful little universe. Yeah, it's so great. I also just want to point out that it took, Rinee, you said 3 days for each spread, and I just want to acknowledge that illustrators takes so much time.
Well, it's all that Netflix, right?
12 years, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Do you have any work that you want? I mean, it would be really cool to see some of the artwork. I just want to make sure that we get a chance to spend a little bit of time with the pictures.
Yeah.
So this is the spread that it opens up with. So yeah, it was kind of developing like what the characters would wear. So like if it was going to be sort of this biblical robe, wanted them to have like tube socks also, just so it wasn't so serious,
So funny. So good. I love the little details. Like, what does the shirt say there?
You had me at tacos.
Yeah. I just love your humor, like the little details.
Rinee has her finger on the internet humor pulse.
So good. Tell us about this. Oh wait, no, go back. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
I just wanted to closer look. You can go on. I just wanted to look for a minute. Go to the next one.
I love Rinee. Am I allowed to compliment you, even though we?
Yeah.
I just love how I know I've used this word with you before, but I love how having this like wonderful lushness and AC Slater like in the same visual field.
Also, the like aesthetically, like the colors, bonkers, so good. Come on, yeah, your palette's amazing. How did you know that off the bat, or did you like choose your palette?
It takes me a long time to dial in a palette, so it took a little while. But like figuring out like the pink was sort of a big one.
Oh yeah, I think it carries through the whole book so beautifully. Like it's super strong. I love the pie. Okay, this one.
Wendy, do you use the phone in the bathroom?
No, but I don't understand why people need 3 minutes seems really long to me. I don't really understand what people do in there.
Well, I mean,
this is
we can have like a little medical breakout room, I guess, if you want.
Yeah, I don't know what y'all doing that takes 3 minutes. I don't really understand. But apparently that's it's a thing that a lot of people do.
Yeah. Wendy, if you ever get like a really long text from me, now you know where I was. I'm kidding.
No.
I'm playing Scrabble.
Yeah, it's super striking and super beautiful. Was there any significant changes at any point that you made, like anything that you decided to redo once you got stuff dialed in and you're like, oh, I want to add this extra funny thing here, or like
I think it took a little while to dial in the skin tones. I remember that being a thing. But once I got the palette, it was pretty straightforward. I'm trying to think if anything really major changed. No, I think that was mostly it.
It's so wonderful. I love it. Also, it's just what you guys have created is such this beautiful, like, kids book for grown-ups that touches all these kind of like different genres, and it's super wonderful. I just saw that there was a little thing that said if anybody has any questions or any comments, it would be super great to hear people's experiences with the internet. If anybody wants to share anything, any thoughts. I mean, I'm sure somebody has a thought about the internet. We'd love to hear it. So yeah, anything else before we go over to questions or comments?
And people can tell us that the internet is great. That's acceptable too. You can argue with us.
There is one question so far. A viewer writes in, how did Rinee get so talented?
That might be somebody I know. We can disregard
it's a good
that
question,
one.
Rinee.
It is a good question.
How did you get so talented, Rinee?
I'm gonna turn bright red.
Oh, you have, okay, I can put a finer point on that. Have you always been a drawer?
Yeah, I've always been a drawer for sure.
Yeah, and did you always want to do books? I feel like doing picture books is a very, very specific thing. It is not something that a lot of editorial illustrators and other kind of artists do. It's something that requires a narrative understanding and all this stuff and a consistency that really few people can do, and you just do it beautifully. Is that something that you have always wanted to do, or is this a new thing?
It's kind of a new thing. This is my second book, but this is definitely the first book where I've had to sort of create these consistent characters and sort of build this whole visual world. And so I think it felt a little daunting when we started because I had never done that, but I was definitely up for the challenge. It was really cool to, kind of put myself up to the task and see if I could do it.
You knocked it out of the park.
Thanks.
So good. Yeah. I think this is a beautiful collaboration between you guys. I think that your work, it's like when a good collaboration of words and pictures happen, it takes us to this third thing where it really is this like, it's like its own medium, and you guys really created that. It's really beautiful.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah.
I'd be happy to share my internet hot takes related to the book.
What's your internet hot take,
no, I just mean as a bookseller thinking about this as well. I'm just interested in I do have a question for you, which is I'm curious to know what comments you've gotten so far from viewers and from people as you've virtually toured this book. We don't have to zero on that irony too much, but I was also thinking as a bookseller that we work in analog technology and very offline technology. And so the book as object is very salient to exploring these ideas, but it also seems like it's happening more. You just inspired me to reach for this book. Don DeLillo's new novel, The Silence, which is about the internet turning off essentially, or all the digital sort of connections snapping on Super Bowl Sunday in 2022. And
we had him do the longer version. We sort of
divided the work. I think he ripped you off. I think that like that's.
I was going to say
make a name for himself. It's fine.
You should have him, if you do like an extended version, you should also have him read it too. He's got quite the reading voice. I don't know if you've ever heard him read his own work. It's pretty spooky to go with the writing. But I just wonder what both of you make of that as like this sort of like how this useful analog technology that we still use, known as books, inflects this idea. I mean, it's sort of, I'm asking like this kind of maybe too many times incepted question, but but also like what you make of how other books and other cultural ephemera are commenting on the internet in unique and novel ways. And I don't know. I just think the book is interesting and so successful what it does because it books can help us sort of reinforce this logic of like not everything is online. So
yeah,
6% of people use Twitter in the United States, but yet everything seems to happen there, kind of thing.
Wait, what percent?
Like less than 6% of people have a Twitter account in the United States.
Wow, that's a good stat.
Yeah, I'd never heard that before.
Yeah,
I appreciated with the like jumping off of what you said, John, about your guys' book is that it does two things. That like it's a little bit meta, like it comments on this thing, but also reading it kind of actually gives you a emotional experience of turning off, like, and of imagining and of doing it. So yeah, yay books, more books, more buying books, reading books, drawing books, selling books, like all of that. Yeah, it seems like it's maybe the best antidote we have to the internet mind.
Yeah. You know, John, you asked earlier, like about responses we've gotten. I had a thought today. I'm sorry, I had a big cup of coffee right before this talk, so this might be long-winded or not make sense. But I was putting the quarters in the parking meter today, and something reminded me of this question that you and I get a lot, Rinee, when we talk about the book, which is, what tips do you have for getting offline? And I usually come up with something, nothing terribly surprising, all the same things anyone would come up with. And I realized why that question always sort of didn't sit right with me, which is trying to sort of go cold turkey on your own, getting off the internet. It's a little like, I don't know, it's a little like trying to stop climate change by recycling that soda can. Like, the deck is so stacked against us. It's not an individual. The tension isn't with the individual and the internet. Like, the internet now is so wrapped up in capitalism and the sort of pace of life that, like, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to like leave my phone on the table for a while. I mean, you can certainly try it. You'll have probably limited luck. What I feel like is a real tip that we should be giving, Rinee, is like, take 5 minutes and think about all the ways that the internet has gotten wrapped around your life. Like, I can't think about work without sort of being in internet time, and I can't think about, you know, entertainment without the internet. And it's just sort of like all these ways that its tendrils have wrapped around us. I feel like we can't really make any headway in our relationship with the internet until we really understand the sort of structural forces that are now sort of arrayed against us.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I don't even go for a walk these days without like putting on my headphones for a podcast. It's like something that's simple that I should be able to do just without the internet. I've somehow like incorporated it into it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another question from a viewer who wants to know, what is one thing you loved to do as a kid that you know you never would have done if there was an internet?
That's a
For
great question.
That's a
all
good
three
question.
of you.
Rinee?
I think it was drawing, actually. Like, I was bored a lot as a kid. And I think I would like draw these whole little, I mean, I guess I was like prepping for this book, but I would draw like these little worlds, you know, and make up characters. And yeah, like I just remember like in the summer, there'd be hours where we weren't in school where, you know, my parents were just like, you know, they wanted us to study or something, but I would just, you know, be drawing in notebooks and stuff. So I think I miss that like curiosity and boredom that used to be in me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Chris?
I mean, I don't think I would have learned. I don't have all that many skills, but any skills I have, I don't think I would have learned, like anything that takes time, like learning an instrument or whatever. But the thing that pops out is this one day in the summer in Virginia growing up when I went in the backyard and dug this really deep hole. Hours. I think I spent all day digging this hole. I was really psyched about that hole. And I just think now, if I was a kid, why would I dig a hole? I can go inside and watch like a great show or play Minecraft or whatever.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like that, Wendy? Is that you don't like
Because
the
I
whole
was
story?
gonna say one thing, but it reminded me of something I haven't thought about in a while.
What?
I was gonna say tennis, because like I mean I
Oh.
could say drawing, but like like tennis, like it's I'm not a sports person, but like doing something like that and not being able to think about anything else, you literally don't have time to think, like and if I still do that now, it takes me back to that when I was a kid. But then you made me think about trying to catch little green aliens using neon dental floss by winding around the trees in my parents' backyard, hoping that they would trip and fall in the middle of the night. I do not think I would have done that, because I would have looked on the internet and it would have been like, no such thing as aliens. Or they would have said, don't use tooth dental floss because there's better ways to do it, you know?
Right.
But like that kind of like, I'm just gonna say it again, like I just love so much that on this like journey that you take when we go off the internet, what we realize is like this place to like imagine. It's that, like you just said, Rinee, it's like this kind of bored place where you just sit and stare at the ceiling and there's no noise coming in. There's no like person call, there's nothing. And it's like, oh, now we can actually like just be bored and imagine stuff. And that was like being a kid, you know?
Don't you think the world, I'm sorry, this is full on 2 cups of coffee, but don't you think the world would be better if we all just spent 5 minutes a day lying on our backs, looking up at the ceiling, imagining walking around up there? How are you going to have war if people are spending 5 minutes a day doing that?
I think that should be the thing that you suggest people do. If they ask for your tip, that's like to get up, it's just to stare at the ceiling for 5 minutes a day.
Thank you, I will.
Well, I wonder if dovetailing with that, if you've received questions from folks about whether, you know, this book meets a moment of people being very fatigued with the internet, in part because of the pandemic. But if you, both of you, not to sort of ask you to be, or all three of you, not to ask you all to be prognosticators, but if that internet fatigue that we're all feeling, obviously it's nice to have opportunities like this to talk on the internet, but will give way to a different relationship. And if this book is the product of a cultural moment that is optimistic, that we can be optimistic about, of us reevaluating our relationship to online and all of the ways that it puts a darkness in our brains sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, Rinee and I have been saying we feel like we're at a sort of an inflection point where things could go either way. Like, knock wood, we're going to come out of this past year, and you know, it's up to us. Or what is the new normal that we forge? Do we still need to Zoom all the time? Do we still need to, you know, stream as many shows or whatever, or can we sort of dial it back? Yeah, I hope that we can make some thoughtful decisions. I don't know, Rinee, what do you think? Is your 2022 going to be different internet wise?
I mean, I think so. I think we're all suffering from Zoom fatigue. Like, I think once we don't have to be on the computer all the time, I think like I'm looking forward to cutting some of it out and just like being out in the world, like a little bit more disconnected.
How about you?
Coming soon to the internet near you. Coming.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I think you guys have created something that is going to be and is something now and will continue to be in the future. Like as we each individually come to that place where we're like, I hit my peak, I hit my limit, you know? It's really nice to have something that's like light and joyous and like a celebration of what's possible, and that there is something, you know, to turn towards. I think that you guys created something really important.
Thank you.
Yeah. That everybody should buy.
And you can buy it, and the link in the chat or the link in the description below if you're watching us on YouTube. I think that's a beautiful note to end on. Rinee Shah, Chris Colin, Wendy McNaughton, thank you so much for joining us tonight at Home with Literati. Thank you for your time. Thank you for producing this wonderful book that, you know, reminds us of how wonderful books as objects can be, which is really important to our store. And hope we can have you in the physical store instead of the virtual bookstore for the next one. And to all of our viewers, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you at the next event. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Good night.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
Bye now.